On the morning of October 12, 1967, a rifle company from the 25th Infantry Division received orders for what appeared to be a straightforward mission. They were to secure a suspected Viet Cong supply cache along a tributary of the Saigon River, approximately 15 kilometers northwest of their fire base. Intelligence suggested the site had been abandoned days earlier. Air reconnaissance showed no recent activity. The operation was expected to conclude by nightfall. It did not. The company consisted of roughly 110 men organized into 3 rifle platoons and a headquarters element. Most had been in country for several months. Their commander, a captain with 8 months of combat experience, was known for methodical planning and caution. He had led similar operations before. This one seemed unremarkable. The area was classified as contested territory, meaning enemy presence was possible but not confirmed. Recent patrols in adjacent sectors had encountered minimal resistance. The intelligence summary rated enemy strength in the area as light, consisting primarily of local Viet Cong forces, rather than regular North Vietnamese Army units. Based on this assessment, the mission was considered low risk. The insertion began at dawn. 3 CH-47 Chinook helicopters lifted the company from the firebase and flew northwest, following the river corridor. The flight took 20 minutes. The landing zone was a cleared area near the riverbank, large enough to accommodate the helicopters, but surrounded by dense vegetation. The insertion proceeded without incident. The helicopters departed and the company formed a perimeter. The captain conducted a radio check with the firebase. Communications were clear. He briefed his platoon leaders on the route and assigned sectors of responsibility. The company would move west along the riverbank for approximately 2 kilometers, then turn inland toward the suspected cache site. Movement began at 7:30. Progress was slow from the start. The terrain along the riverbank was thick with undergrowth and tangled vegetation. Visibility rarely exceeded 10 meters. The point element had to cut through in several places. The heat and humidity were oppressive. Within the first hour, 2 soldiers showed signs of heat exhaustion and required rest. The captain adjusted the pace and ordered more frequent water breaks. By mid-morning, the company had covered less than half the planned distance. The captain radioed the firebase to report the delay. He was instructed to continue and advised that extraction helicopters would be on standby if needed. At approximately 10:15, the point squad reported finding a trail. It was narrow, recently used, and ran roughly parallel to their direction of travel. The squad leader estimated it had been active within the last day or two based on the condition of the footprints. The captain moved forward to assess. The trail showed signs of foot traffic, but no heavy equipment or vehicles. It could have been used by civilians, Viet Cong, or both. He decided to follow it. The trail offered easier movement than cutting through the jungle, and it led toward the objective area. He instructed the point squad to proceed with caution and maintain interval. The company resumed movement. The trail wound through the jungle, occasionally crossing small streams and low ground. The company moved in a staggered column, maintaining security on both flanks. The going was faster now, but the captain remained uneasy. Trails were often watched or booby-trapped. He ordered frequent halts to listen and observe. Nothing unusual was detected. By late morning, the company reached a point where the trail diverged. One branch continued west toward the objective. The other turned southwest, deeper into the jungle. The captain studied his map. The southwest branch was not marked. He decided to continue west and noted the unmarked trail for the intelligence report. Shortly after noon, the lead platoon reached the suspected cache site. It was located in a depression surrounded by heavy vegetation, partially concealed by fallen logs and palm fronds. The platoon leader signaled a halt and conducted a visual inspection from a distance. The site appeared undisturbed, but he could not see inside without approaching. The captain moved forward and assessed the situation. He ordered the platoon to establish security while a squad moved in to investigate. The squad approached slowly, watching for tripwires or pressure plates. They found none. The cache was empty. There were depressions in the soil where containers had been placed, but everything had been removed. Based on the condition of the site, the material had been moved within the last 72 hours. The captain radioed the firebase and reported the findings. He was instructed to search the immediate area for additional caches or signs of enemy activity. He deployed 2 platoons in a cloverleaf pattern, searching sectors radiating from the empty cache. The 3rd platoon remained at the site to provide security. The search continued for 2 hours. One platoon found the remains of a cooking fire, cold but recent. The other found a second cache site, also empty. Both discoveries were reported. The captain requested guidance. He was told to continue searching until mid-afternoon, then prepare for extraction. At approximately 2:30, one of the search platoons reported hearing movement to their west. It was faint but distinct, suggesting multiple individuals moving through the jungle. The platoon leader requested permission to investigate. The captain denied the request and ordered the platoon to return to the cache site. He did not want his unit dispersed if contact was made. The platoon began moving back. 10 minutes later, the other search platoon reported similar sounds to their north. The captain ordered both platoons to consolidate at the cache site immediately. Something was wrong. The area that intelligence had assessed as lightly held now appeared to have enemy forces moving nearby. As the platoons withdrew, the pace quickened. The men moved as quietly as possible, but the jungle made silence impossible. Branches snapped. Equipment rattled. The captain established a defensive perimeter at the cache site and conducted a head count. All personnel were accounted for. He radioed the firebase and requested immediate extraction. He was informed that helicopters were available but would require 30 minutes to reach the landing zone. The firebase offered artillery support if needed. The captain acknowledged and ordered his platoon leaders to prepare for movement back to the landing zone. The company would move in a tight column, maintaining all-around security. The withdrawal began at 3 o'clock. The company retraced their route along the trail, moving faster than they had during the approach. The captain positioned himself near the center of the column where he could maintain communication with all elements. The rear guard reported no signs of pursuit. The column continued. After 20 minutes, the point element reached the location where the trail had diverged earlier. The captain ordered a brief halt to allow the column to tighten. As the men waited, the sound of movement was heard again, this time closer and from multiple directions. The captain made a decision. Rather than continue along the trail, which might be blocked or ambushed, he ordered the company to move directly east through the jungle toward the landing zone. It would be slower and more difficult, but it reduced the risk of walking into a prepared position. The company left the trail and began cutting through the jungle. Progress was immediately hampered. The vegetation was thick and the terrain sloped upward. The men were tired and moving under the weight of equipment and tension. The captain rotated the point element every 15 minutes to maintain pace. Behind them, the sounds of movement continued. It was difficult to determine distance or direction in the dense jungle, but it was clear they were being tracked. The captain requested an artillery fire mission on the trail junction behind them to discourage pursuit. The fire base acknowledged and delivered the mission within minutes. The explosions were audible but distant. Whether they had any effect was unknown. By 4 o'clock, the company had covered roughly half the distance to the landing zone. The terrain remained difficult. Several men had minor injuries from falls or vegetation. One soldier had stepped into a concealed hole and twisted his knee. He could walk, but not quickly. The captain assigned 2 men to assist him. The column pressed on. At 4:30, the point element reported reaching the edge of the jungle. The landing zone was visible ahead, approximately 200 meters across open ground. The captain moved forward to observe. The clearing was as they had left it that morning, but crossing open ground while possibly being pursued was a risk. He had no choice. He radioed the firebase and confirmed helicopters were en route. Estimated arrival was 10 minutes. The captain ordered the company to move into the tree line and establish a defensive line facing back toward the jungle. Once the helicopters arrived, they would move by platoon across the open ground and load in sequence. The men took positions and waited. The sounds of movement had ceased, but that offered little comfort. The enemy might be observing, waiting to see what the Americans would do. The minutes passed slowly. At 4:45, the distinctive sound of rotor blades became audible. 3 helicopters appeared from the east, circling once before approaching the landing zone. The captain signaled the first platoon to move. The first platoon broke from the tree line and ran across the open ground. The helicopters touched down, and the men loaded quickly. The helicopters lifted off without incident. The second platoon moved next. As they crossed the clearing, rifle fire erupted from the tree line to the south. It was sporadic and poorly aimed, but it forced the men to move faster. The helicopters on the ground did not take fire. The second platoon loaded and lifted off. The third platoon and headquarters element remained. The captain called in artillery on the tree line where the fire had originated. The firebase delivered the mission, and the explosions silenced the rifle fire. The final helicopters landed. The remaining men moved across the clearing and loaded. The captain was the last man aboard. The helicopters lifted off at 5 o'clock. The company returned to the firebase without casualties. The mission had lasted 9.5 hours. The suspected cache had been found empty. The area had proven to be more actively used by enemy forces than intelligence had indicated. The company had been tracked during their withdrawal, but had avoided significant contact. In his after-action report, the captain noted several factors that had contributed to the outcome. The decision to leave the trail and move through the jungle had likely prevented an ambush. The use of artillery had discouraged pursuit. The discipline of the soldiers had ensured no one panicked or became separated. The mission had not achieved its intended objective, but the company had gathered intelligence and returned intact. Reflecting on this mission decades later, military analysts might point to it as an example of the challenges American forces faced in Vietnam. Intelligence was often incomplete or outdated. The enemy was mobile and difficult to track. Terrain and vegetation favored those who knew it well. Missions that appeared straightforward on paper became complex in execution. Success was often measured not by objectives achieved, but by avoiding failure. The captain and his company had done exactly that. They had adapted when circumstances changed, made prudent decisions under pressure, and brought everyone home. It was not a famous battle. It would not be remembered in history books, but for the 110 men who were there, it was a mission that could have ended very differently. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and write in the comments what the next video should be about.